Chris escorted his best friend Keila to the new hostel where she had just been sponsored. They had been waiting for her roommate, Natalie, for hours, but she finally showed up. When Natalie offered to help her with some of her luggage, she said Chris would assist her. Unfortunately, boys weren't allowed in the hostel at that time, so she ended up carrying everything by herself. Chris cares so much about her that he's always available whenever she needs him. Meanwhile, Nini, one of Natalie's friends, came home, but his father was waiting for him. He has always been mad at his father because he constantly cheated on his mother and even had another family outside. This time, his father came to talk about why he had been failing his exams, but the anger he had been holding inside made him speak rudely to his father. The next day, Chris woke up full of energy and courage, ready to finally ask his best friend out, since he had always wanted her to be his girlfriend. But when he arrived, he overheard her on a very sad phone call. She had just been told that her sponsor, the one who paid all her school fees and covered everything, had died. Obviously, it wasn't the right time to confess his feelings, so he chose instead to comfort her and stay by her side. She even wanted to leave, but he convinced her to stay. Meanwhile, at Nini's place, plans were being made for a party. Though Nini wasn't sure if he would attend, he said he'd think about it. At that moment, Natalie spotted the beautiful things he bought from the supermarket and grabbed a perfume. He didn't want to give it to her, but since she had already taken it, he couldn't force it back. When she tried to take another item, he quickly collected everything from her. Later that day, Natalie came home and saw Keila lying sadly on the bed. Knowing what had happened, she tried to cheer her up by giving her the perfume she took from Nini. Though Keila was hesitant, Natalie insisted, hoping to lighten her mood. She wanted her to stop overthinking the tragedy, so she teased her about Chris, saying he's a hot guy and that they'd make a fine couple. Keila just smiled and shook her head in disagreement. 2 days later, Keila sat at the school dining hall, lost in thought about how she would handle her academic fees. Chris joined her, offering to help with some of his feeding allowance and income from his side hustle. But Keila refused, not wanting to burden him, knowing that money was also what he used for his own fees. Noticing she was eating without any protein, he stood up to buy her some fried fish. When he left, Keila decided to sell the perfume Natalie had given her for just 4,000 naira, not knowing it actually cost over 150,000 naira. Coincidentally, Nini stepped in at that moment, also unaware that the perfume Keila was selling was the very one Natalie had taken from him. Later that day, Nini came to pick Natalie up for an event, but Keila was the one who opened the door. Keila immediately thought he was stalking her, but he clarified that he wasn't, and even called her the perfume girl. Natalie stepped in, telling him she was his friend and asking him to wait 5 minutes for her to finish up. She then asked if the two of them knew each other, but Nini explained that he only knew Keila as someone who tried to sell an expensive pink perfume worth a fortune for just 4,000. Natalie's mood instantly changed, realizing Keila had tried to sell the gift she gave her. But when she questioned further, Nini realized the truth, that the perfume was actually his. The next day at school, Chris and Keila received an invitation to the party, but both agreed not to go since the fee was too expensive. Back at Nini's place, his father was waiting for him when he got home. This time, he asked Nini to be his best man at his wedding to his new wife. That only made Nini angrier, and he spoke to him more rudely than ever before. Later, his mother called him after hearing about the wedding. Nini tried to console her by apologizing, but she told him there was no need. It wasn't his fault. Still, he went on about how much he hated his father for the way he treated her and his siblings. But his mother told him to stop talking like that, reminding him that despite everything, his father still provided and cared for him. That evening, Keila apologized to Natalie for trying to sell the perfume. Though Natalie was hesitant to forgive her, she finally did after he hugged her. The next day, Chris came over with ground nuts, Keila's favorite snack. He also told her he had spoken to the party organizers, and they agreed to let him pay just 5,000 for 2 people, so she could at least have some enjoyment after all the recent stress. But Keila declined, saying it was better to save the money than waste it on a party. Later that day, Natalie asked Keila to come with her to the party, since she would be the only girl among her friends. She even offered to pay for a VIP ticket. Keila hesitated, but Natalie insisted, saying she couldn't refuse her gift again. Keila was left speechless. The next day, Keila went to Chris's place. After studying together, he suggested they hang out the following day, but she told him she couldn't make it because Natalie had already bought her a ticket to the party, and she didn't want to refuse since their friendship was just starting. Chris wanted to join, but she said it wouldn't look good if she was in VVIP while he sat elsewhere. Before he could say anything more, she received a call and had to leave. Chris felt really bad, but his friend advised him to stop trying to impress her with money and instead tell her how he truly felt. When they met again, Chris told her to decline the invitation and made her think about why Natalie always forced expensive gifts on her. Keila admitted he had a point. Later that evening, as they prepared for the party, Keila pretended to have a stomachache and told Natalie not to buy the ticket. But Natalie said she had already paid, and since there was no refund policy, Keila didn't want her money to go to waste. She finally agreed to go with them. Meanwhile, Chris was waiting for her at school, but she never showed up. He even went to the hostel, but she wasn't there. At the party, Keila eventually got tired and stepped outside to clear her head. Nini also came out and brought up the perfume incident again, but she brushed him off, saying guys who talk too much aren't attractive. To avoid embarrassment, Nini responded that he wouldn't date a girl like her any day. She sighed deeply and walked away. When the group returned, it was late, so the girls couldn't go back to the hostel. Natalie went to sleep with her boyfriend, while Keila had no choice but to sleep on the couch, since Nini wouldn't allow her in his room, and she had no intention of that anyway. The next morning, Chris was at the hostel gate, trying everything possible to see Keila, but with no success. Meanwhile, Keila woke up in bed next to Nini and noticed her clothes had been changed. Shocked, she shouted at him, demanding to know how she ended up there, why her clothes were different, and whether he had touched her. But Nini calmly explained that he hadn't touched her. Natalie was the one who changed her clothes because she felt cold during the night. Keila finally sighed in relief. Later that day, Nini dropped the girls off, but Chris was already there waiting. He was furious, angry that Keila had gone to the party after they agreed she wouldn't, and even more upset that she had spent the night in another guy's house. He walked away, boiling with anger. That same day, Chris confronted Nini on campus, warning him to stay away from Keila if he didn't want trouble. But he refused to be threatened, telling him to stay out of his way and never try that nonsense again. It almost turned into a fight. Not long after, Nini confronted Keila, asking her to warn her boyfriend to never try that again. But she insisted she had no boyfriend, until Natalie jokingly said it might be Chris. She immediately went to confront Chris, but he explained he only did that because he didn't like how they were influencing her. He promised to apologize, and she forgave him. The next day, Nini spoke with his mother, who advised him to take his studies more seriously and try to perform better in his next exams. Later that same day, Keila was congratulated by the lecturer for her excellent performance. Nini, seeing this, asked her to tutor him, even offering to pay any amount, but she refused, saying many people wanted her to teach them, and after the way he had always treated her rudely, she had no interest in teaching him. After class, he waited for her, but she didn't even acknowledge him. She simply walked past, leaving him standing there. During evening prep, Nini came bearing gifts, but she still declined them. When his friends saw how serious he was about getting Keila to tutor him, Natalie begged her later that evening to forgive him and give him a chance. She was hesitant, but eventually agreed. The next day, she went to him, told him she would help, and took his number so she could call when the lesson was scheduled. Chris only allowed it because she needed the money. He suggested that he should tutor Nini instead, while she still took the payment because he was so insecure. But Keila never realized this. In her mind, he was only being concerned for her safety as a best friend. She told him to stop being paranoid over nothing. When she met Nini for their first lesson, she quickly realized he wasn't making any progress and sensed something was wrong. But when she asked, he denied having any problem. She encouraged him to let go of whatever was on his mind so they could focus and make progress. 2 days later, things began to change. Nini started making huge improvements with each lesson. Later, he even took Keila out to dinner, thanking her for everything she had done for him. He explained how grateful he was and how her help had been guiding him through his inner struggles. Keila came back with some of the food for Chris, but he got angry when he found out she had gone to the restaurant with Nini and that the food came from him. Once again, his friend advised him to confess his feelings before he completely lost her, but Chris said he was waiting for the right time. He planned to do it next weekend. That same evening, Nini sent Keila food, just like he had promised at dinner, telling her he'd buy her food anytime he bought his. She blushed while remembering. Natalie teased her, asking if she could finally admit Nini was a cool guy, and Keila shyly agreed. She was also curious about what was bothering Nini so much, and Natalie told her about his parents' broken marriage, explaining that it had always been his deepest struggle. Keila understood him better. The next day, Keila visited Chris, but he was still upset. She hadn't realized how serious he was until he asked her to leave. Clearly, his anger was eating him up inside. Later that day, Nini came around and invited Keila out. She was hesitant at first, but he convinced her, and she agreed. That evening, Keila sat on her bed smiling, lost in thoughts of Nini, the way he made her feel, the butterflies in her stomach, and the gift he had given her. From then on, they started spending more time together, going to school and coming back together, having fun, studying side by side, and even sharing meals. Meanwhile, Chris had no idea any of this was happening until his friend told him how close Keila and Nini had been lately on campus. He knew he had to do something. The next day at school, he followed them. When he approached, he complained that Keila hadn't been answering his calls. She explained her phone had been on silent. Chris tried to take her away with him, but Nini refused, holding on to her as well. The two locked eyes in a tense stare until Chris walked away. Keila gave Nini a sign, then quickly followed Chris. She went home with him. Chris asked why she had been moving around campus with Nini, pretending it was all about her safety. But she defended Nini, saying he was harmless and wouldn't hurt her. She reminded Chris, "Wasn't it you who sent me out of your house last time?" Chris replied bitterly, "So that's why you abandoned me." But to Keila, Chris was still only her best friend, nothing more. During the day, she told Nini about the cramps she was having, then went straight to bed in the evening. That night, Nini came to check on her, but it seemed her condition was worse. He asked if there was anything he could do, and she told him to boil some water for her. After that, he stayed by her side until Natalie returned. With the boys' hostel curfew running out, he left Keila in Natalie's care. By morning, Keila was feeling fine again, and Natalie teased her, saying she must like Nini. She just blushed, refusing to admit anything. Disclaimer: this video is a movie recap created for entertainment, commentary, and educational purposes. It does not replace the original movie. All clips and images belong to their respective copyright owners, and no copyright infringement is intended. The next day, Keila went to thank Nini for everything. Meanwhile, Chris had finally gathered the courage to confess his feelings to her. On the other hand, Nini asked Keila whether she and Chris were dating. She laughed, saying no, that Chris was only her best friend, a very important person in her life, and nothing more. She explained how their bond grew out of similar family struggles, and how Chris had been with her through the loss of her sponsor. After hearing all this, Nini held her hand and confessed his love. Just then, Chris appeared, and seeing how close they were, rushed in with jealousy. In the scuffle, Nini's nose got hurt. "I told you to stay away from my girlfriend, I told you!" Chris gasped angrily. But Keila stepped in between them, furious at his violent attitude. "What's wrong with you? Why? What did he do?" she demanded. Chris, breathing heavily, told her to come with him. When she refused, he finally burst out, "Because I love you. I love you, Keila. I've always been in love with you, from the very beginning." Nini quietly walked away, leaving Keila stunned and speechless. Now, with both men wanting her, Keila felt completely torn. She decided to give them space while she figured out her feelings. But both Chris and Nini kept chasing after her. That night, Keila lay on her bed, smiling and blushing, while Natalie looked on confused, unsure which of the two she was thinking about. A week later, Keila finally texted Chris to meet. She told him she loved him deeply as her best friend, that they had been through so much together. But the love she felt for him was more like a brother, not a lover. She admitted she once had a crush on him, but not anymore. Chris froze. A cold breeze seemed to pass through his skin as he stepped back. All he could manage to ask was, "What about him?" Keila knew it would hurt him, but she had to be honest. She admitted she now had feelings for Nini. Chris was left speechless. Later that day, Keila went to Nini's place. She explained that she never expected things to end this way with her best friend, and although she was starting to develop feelings for him, she couldn't risk losing Chris completely. She asked if he could wait. Maybe in the future, they might be together, but for now, they should just remain friends. Nini didn't want to let her go, but he finally agreed, on one condition, that she give him a hug. She gave him a warm, passionate hug, just the way he wanted. From then on, the three of them remained close, supporting each other, studying together, and hanging out on campus as friends. If you enjoy recaps like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because I'll tell you a Nollywood movie story that would take you hours to watch in just 15 minutes. And let me ask you, if you were in Keila's shoes, would you do the same thing, or would you choose one of them? Let's talk in the comments.